Housing Rebellion.
Yes.
Housing Rebellion.
Yeah.
Which are two great groups and organizations that we're going to hear about and their approach. Further to my right, I'm very excited to welcome Dee. Dee has been doing incredible work with the international solidarity movement, especially in Palestine, and I can't wait to find out more and hear about that exciting work. Thank you very much for joining us here today. And to my left, I'm really pleased to announce the wonderful Robin from Fossil Free London.
Hello.
Another fantastic movement addressing the Polycrisis and what we can do about it. So, without further ado, we're here to hear about the different tactics, to give people a sense of where we're at the moment, and for you to hear a bit about our different experiences. And then, as I said, we'll open up for questions. I suppose to introduce myself briefly, Marcus, I have been working closely with Extinction Rebellion and following that with Just Stop Oil, and I've also been involved with Animal Rising and HS2 Rebellion, and I've got some lived experiences from in prison and walking around with one of these on my leg to tell you about if you're interested. So I might just pass over to my first panelists. Anyone like to start specifically?
I'm happy to start.
Pass over to Dee. Thank you so much. If you, thank you.
Just to introduce myself, Marcus.
Please introduce yourself and speak a bit about the work that you've been doing lately.
Yeah.
Let me help set up this mic.
Okay. Thank you. So my name is Dee. I moved to Swansea 45 years ago from Ireland. Swansea is my home. In 2004, we set up a group called Swansea Palestine Community Link, because we were given a link in Balata refugee camp, which is outside Nablus. And that was my first year to go to Palestine. I went with an organisation called ISM. ISM is the International Solidarity Movement, and it was set up in a most interesting way. Most of you will know that Intifada means uprising. So in the second Intifada in Palestine in 2001, Palestinians on the ground were very conscious of this already, but then internationals and anti-Zionist Israelis started to notice that, of course, like every social justice movement anywhere, it was being covered by the mainstream from the view of the oppressor. So they set up, like I say, Israelis, internationals and Palestinians, of course, set up the International Solidarity Movement, basically asking internationals to come to Palestine and to witness and document what they saw, and more importantly, to stand in solidarity alongside Palestinians. Now, this organization is Palestinian-led. That's really, really important to know. And it's a non-violent organization, but in no way critical of how Palestinians choose to resist at the same time. So there's always a call out for internationals to go to Palestine, and the call is being put out more strongly than ever. So partly I'm here to talk about, as we said, protests going forward and what that means, but also to put out a plea, especially to people my generation who have so much less to lose than, say, for instance, someone Marcus's age. I'm on a state pension. My kids are grown up. I'm lucky I live in a housing co-op. So I feel very privileged in that way. Of course, I'm white, which is an enormous privilege, especially if you want to travel to Palestine, because you have to lie to get through the borders, because Israel controls all borders into Palestine. I could say a lot, but I don't. Are we just introducing and we'll come back to? Or do you want me to say a bit more?
I think you say a few more.
Okay,
Yes, yeah.
so
Important.
I'll describe a scenario. So say you decide, some of you here in the audience, you come up and you say, look, I want to go with ISM to Palestine. You would be assigned a buddy, first of all, but there is a vetting process to make sure you understand what it means. Now, we are talking about the West Bank, of course, because unless you're a medic, there's no good anyone can do in Gaza, which is, we haven't the words to speak about the horror that's happening there. But in the West Bank, internationals can still do a lot of solidarity work. So you'd go through ISM, you'd be vetted, maybe asked for a reference, make sure you're a sound person, and then you would be supported all along the way. There's even a financial fund to help people who really want to go but can't afford to. So you'd get all that kind of support, and you get 2 days a day's training here in the UK. But as soon as you get to Palestine, we have an ISM flat in Ramallah. You would be given 2 days on the ground training in Ramallah by Palestinians. So that means they would bring you up to date on what is happening. Now, the Palestinians care so much for internationals who come, they would never ask you to go to a hotspot. When I say that, I mean a place where there may be armed resistance, like it used to be in the camps of Jenin, Tulkarem, Balata, but I'm not sure if you know, because all eyes are on Gaza, and rightly so. But in January, when there was a brief ceasefire, the Israelis took 3 battalions out of Gaza and put them to the West Bank. And there, where I was at the time, they came to Tulkarem, and they forcibly emptied that camp of 15,000 people over 3 days. And when I say camp, I mean a small town, because those camps were set up in 1948. If you think that in 48, in the Nakba, people were driven out of their villages and towns at gunpoint, they walked in a straight line. The people in Tulkarem mainly came from Haifa, in what Palestinians call 48, what is known to the rest of the world as Israel. They walked in a straight line to the first safe town they came to, a big enough town where they felt safe. That was Tulkarem. They set up their meagre belongings there. They were given tents by the UN. Those tents became little brick houses, and they've expanded. And that was 48. So you can imagine now, those still called camps, they're actually small suburbs of Tulkarem. So they were forcibly emptied. Nur Shams camp and Tulkarem camp in Tulkarem, 15,000 people. The same happened in Jenin. So suddenly, imagine your own town wherever you live, suddenly an influx of 15,000 homeless people. What do you do with them? I mean, luckily in Palestine, the family structure is powerful, it's strong, it still exists. So families could support and take in each other. My friend Mohammed lived in a flat with his mum and 3 siblings in Tulkarem town. When I spoke to him, there were 17 family members living with him. So that's the kind of thing that's happening. So ISM would not send you to any place there's armed resistance. Where I go, I don't know if anyone here, put up your hand maybe if you have seen the award-winning documentary film. It was it got the Oscar nominations this year, No Other Land. I saw a few hands there. No Other Land is based in Masafer Yatta. Masafer Yatta is the place I go to. It's a stunning biblical landscape. And we have a little flat in a village called Atwani. And from there, the Palestinians say, we need ISMers, always in pairs, to go to Shabal Batham. There's settlers have been driving around the village with their horns blaring and their lights on, and they're harassing the people. They set fire to a truck at the edge of the village. Now, it's so hard to explain this, but Palestinians call us, even an old grandmother like me, protective presence. Of course, we're not protecting anyone, but I think what you do by your presence is, A, you still have a little bit of influence. So if armed Israeli settlers come and they see you there with your camera, with your filming, they're a little more restrained. But more than that, because settlers don't come every night, by you being there, you know what the families say? We sleep better. We got a good night's sleep tonight because we had some internationals present. Like, what a beautiful thing to be able to offer a night's sleep to people who are on the edge, who are stressed and have to live with, like, under occupation every single day and have since 48. People say to me, is it dangerous to go to Palestine? I say, absolutely, it is dangerous. The biggest danger is you will leave part of your heart there. Sorry. And you'll always want to go back, because Palestinians can teach us how to resist. Day in, day out. Existence is resistance for Palestinians, just to get up and go through the daily humiliations of checkpoints, of having your kids stoned on their way to school. I mean, the sudden roadblocks that mean you can't get to work, you can't go to hospital, you can't go shopping. It's constant. On top of that, since October, the settlers in the illegal settlements are so emboldened. They know there are no consequences to their actions. But now that may sound grim and awful, but let me tell you, I was there in April, May this year. I came back at the beginning of June. And you spend so many beautiful days going out with the shepherds. Just think of scenes from your Bible, if you're Christians here. And I'm not a practicing Christian, but from school I remember the pictures of the Bible, the hillsides with the flocks of sheep and the goats and the farmers. It's still like that. It's incredible, and the wildflowers are stunning. So you're on this hillside with farmers and the sheep and the goats, and they build a little fire and they make some shai for you, some tea, and then you share lunch, and then you go home and you have dinner with the family, and the women show you how the taboon, where they make the bread, and all the food is so beautiful and fresh and natural. It's such an incredible privilege to be there. So maybe you'd have 3 days like that, which are magical. And then you'll have the day when the army, the settlers, the army, the border police come. What's the worst thing that could happen to you if you go? Now, not 100%, of course, but the worst thing, and it happened to me sadly this time, I was arrested because I went to see a village where I've spent so much time called Khalat al-Daba. It's the Valley of the Hyena. And it was demolished. Masver Yatta is under a demolition order. So the village was demolished, and I went there, and my dear friend Layla was sitting in an old armchair on the rubble of her house. But you know what Palestinians say in that village and all through Masver Yatta? If we can't live on our land, we will live under our land. I mean, talk about resilience and fortitude, and it's awesome. So they've enlarged the caves. They normally would have their donkeys in, or keep their winter feed in. And there's a lovely organisation called Comet, which is a collaboration of Israelis and Palestinians who've fitted electricity to these caves. They have a hole in the middle for they put the chimney up for their winter fire. So they've moved down into their caves. So I was filming the destruction. It was like a little corner of Gaza. And I was arrested with my friend Susa. And the worst thing coming back to that could happen to you is be deported. Now, you can go willingly, but I decided to challenge that deportation, because what did I do? I was taking photographs. What is wrong with that? I was documenting. I spent 12 days in an Israeli jail. I want to make it clear, an Israeli jail for foreign nationals. It was not a torture center where Palestinians are. I've met an ex-prisoner from Jenin. He'd been out 3 days. He was in one of these torture centers in Offa prison. He went in 150 kilograms, and he came out after a year weighing 60. I have a photo, covered in scabies. The horrors he underwent, I couldn't bring myself to speak. Use your imagination. It was bad. So I was in a prison for foreign nationals. I'd say it was akin to where Marcus was. I got basic food, every day. I'm vegan. It was rice and a green pepper, or rice and a tomato. So what? A little bit of discomfort. So if you decide to go, that's probably the worst that could happen. You have the privilege of your passport. You have the privilege of your embassy. Now, how useful the British embassy will be. The Irish embassy was brilliant. You'd have the backup of ISM, your friends here, your affinity group, your solidarity group. So anyway, I feel like I've done more of a plug, which I actually want to keep it together.
Thank you so much.
We really value and appreciate your witness of what you've experienced yourself and of those people and what those Palestinians experience on a daily basis. Let's just all take one breath together. Oh, wow. So much in there. So the resistance is obviously on the front lines abroad, and that's absolutely could potentially get involved with that or support those people that do. The resistance also has to continue in the UK, and I think the three of us can speak better to that. And so I'd like to invite Sabine next to speak to that from her perspective. Thank you.
Yeah, hello. So thank you, Marcus. Is it working? Okay. Oh, thank you. So I live on an estate that's been facing demolition for about 10 years. And through that, I've learned how kind of corrupt and insipid the whole system is, that what is structurally sound housing is actually kind of the narrative. It's physically run down, and it's kind of in the narrative. You have Cameron calling estates sink estates, and generally council housing used to be held in a much higher esteem. So the narrative has now led it down a path that makes it seem like it's the worst place to be. And this is all so that it can be knocked down and built into predominantly high-rise properties that are sold as investment properties. So it's a big land grab. So obviously, I'm here from Refurbish, Don't Demolish. Across London, there are 133 estates facing demolition, and that doesn't cover the ones that have already been lost. So this is our heritage. It's public land. It's not a burden on society. It may have been built with a debt, but that has been paid off through rent, and well run and well invested, you actually make money from these estates. What you don't make are huge profits. And it's all part of, as we've seen, the whole system with our water system, with our rail, with everything. Housing is also being turned into a commodity on steroids. It's a total land grab. It's pushing people out, and it is creating this housing crisis. Across the UK, there are 1 million empty properties. So, and many of them on council estates. There's one estate called Aylesbury. It has 700 empty properties. It happened to be the estate that Tony Blair did his inaugural speech on. It was only 20 years old. It was built in the 1970s. He did his speech in the 1990s. And it was only 20 years old, and they were already talking about how to knock it down and rebuild. So they've been campaigning since then. So these are very long processes. And it is the worst thing. It's bad socially, and people don't become aware of it because they say we need more housing. Let's build more housing. Yay. But what they don't say, they start off by saying we're building more housing for the homeless. And then they drop the homeless narrative. They're just building more homes. And just to say, the average rent, actually, before we go to rent, the average purchase price of these new builds, you're looking at 450,000 for a one-bed flat, maybe 650,000 for a three-bed flat. These are things that we cannot afford. No, people who need housing can't afford those kind of homes, and they may be poor quality. They may be thrown up with less resources than we actually had in the times when council housing was built, where they poured so much cement it would blow all our carbon budget in today's terms. But in those days, they were solidly built. So, yeah, at the moment, there's a massive housing crisis in London. The average rent is £2,200 per month, and that's for a 2-bed. A 1-bed is like 1,600, 1,300. So everyone is being really affected. And what I was trying to say is many homes have been lost through the right to buy with social housing, and many have been demolished, and many facing demolition are being left empty. So this diminishing of the housing that people desperately need is pushing people into the private sector where people can make money. And then homes are so expensive to buy, that also makes it impossible for people to get on the housing ladder. So this isn't about just people in need, the vulnerable people. This is about everyone is being pushed into private housing. I know that obviously we're not in London here. And so you have, for example, in Cornwall, there is no housing because everyone is doing Airbnb and holiday let. So there are desperate situations there where families just have nowhere to go, or places are becoming very expensive. So when we look about campaigning, Housing Rebellion is more umbrella organisation, and it's just to tackle and challenge the so many different areas, the expensive housing, the empty properties, and to stop the demolition. So I'm part of Refurbish, Don't Demolish. I just want to say about the environmental side, I don't know if you know, but one brick emits 700 grams of carbon, and one tree absorbs between 25 and 40 kilos per year, mature tree. So when you compare it, less than 50 bricks is the equivalent of one tree. So these are massive structures that they're knocking down, creating a deficit, because if you've knocked down 100 homes, it doesn't matter if you build 200, you're only increasing it by 100, and that 100 no one can afford to live in. So this is just showing how the whole system needs challenging. And I would call out to you to just support housing activism locally, be aware of what's happening, this rampant planning. The world cannot, this planet cannot support unwanted development which is happening. What needs to be built must be council housing or not built at all. Nothing new should be built. We are living in an environmental existential crisis, and it needs to be stopped as much as possible. One more happy fact is that the sand to build glass has to be sharp sand, is angular sand. It can be taken from riverbeds and sea. You can't use desert sand. We all know glass comes from silicon, from glass, from sand. But it's only a specific type of sand. And globally, 60 billion tons of sand is used per year. And there's only enough left for the next 20 years because there's so much construction going on. So it is our resources that are being taken, as well as the immense carbon emissions. The UK carbon emission, 11% is from construction, and another 20% is from heating being lost through our housing that isn't insulated. So the solution is to insulate. And I will leave it there. In terms of campaigning, we've done protest occupying, effectively squatting, empty homes, empty buildings, all should be occupied. And people should not have to almost go through this cat and mouse waiting list, feeling that they're worthless because they have nowhere to stay. People should all have a decent house to stay. And I will leave it there. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabine. Your work's much appreciated and very important. We're really looking forward to finding out more based on some of the questions in the Q&A. And thank you. On my left, wonderful Robin from Phosphorus London. The future of protest. Over to you.
Okay, so our right to protest is a bit like a 90s Nokia. It's tough, but it's not invincible. And we're currently really at risk in regards to our right to protest. As we know, law has changed substantially recently. This isn't a unique historical event. It's happened throughout our history multiple times, often after large mobilisations, because governments fear protest. It's powerful, brings people together. It transforms us personally. It connects us to each other, and to the values that we're advocating for. so that we can do that deeper work that many people here at this event are doing, as well as transforming these business as usual systems. So how do we protect our right to protest? At Fossil Free London, our view is we protect it through using it. We all have a right to be in a group. We all have the right to organise. Our Article 11 right to freedom of association with other people, to be in an organising group. And in the face of polycrisis, in the face of climate collapse, which is now locked in and going to happen, unfortunately, we, those who have desired to save the earth, know that that won't happen. The 1.5 degree safety guardrail that we were hoping to stay within, 1.5 to stay alive, is not going to happen. Even if we were to stop everything right now, which of course we can't, collapse is coming. Add that to the crushing reality of what's happening in Palestine, to all the crises that we're looking at worldwide, to all those things we've all held in our hearts in these amazing Work That Reconnect sessions. And it's a bleak outlook. It's complicated as well. There aren't simple solutions. But for all social problems, the solution is social. For all complex problems, the solution is the complexity of human connection. It's only through groups and strategizing together that we're ever going to start to approach answers to this changing world that we're facing, building little sanctuaries. I think the chance of making the whole world a sanctuary is now sadly gone. But that doesn't mean it's not worth fighting for the little sanctuaries we can create, and for a better spirit together and against the most egregious parts of our system. We do that in Fossil Free London. So we fight the most egregious injustice of our system, in our view, in relation to the climate crisis, which is the continued rampant profiteering of a small group of men who are making billions, indeed trillions, it's one of the largest global industries, of selling a product that they not only know harms people, that they not only know kills people, but that they know will destroy the basis of not only human life, but all current mammalian and other species and types of animals on Earth, and the trees and the plants that we can so connect with as well. How we do this is we go into spaces where these men, and it is predominantly men, are making decisions and shaking hands with our politicians to continue to profit from this product that is not only passively consumed by us, but is actively promoted by them in all corners and corridors of power, so that we are using plastic on everything. So there is a plastic plan for any global crisis. They had a plan in place for the COVID pandemic to release huge quantities of plastic to try and row back some of the work that's been done against oil and plastic. This demand they're actively creating, and doing it in collaboration with our corrupt political class, who have friendships, neighbouring houses, maybe they offer each other's children internships, etc. They have tight class relationships with people who work for big oil and other massive polluting industries. We go into places where they're meeting and where they meet each other in the corporate space, and we speak truth to power in those spaces. So that looks like sneaking in on your phone, pretending you're very formal and official, and ending up in a room of big oil dealers and shouting. And it's great. It's extremely liberating. It is direct action in the most performative sense. And we have super creative, amazing, inspiring people really coming into their own power. And it's an entry tactic, to be honest. It brings people in because people go, hey, I could do that, and I feel angry. And through their seeing of what we do, we're very active on social media. If you can manage the mental load of being on social media, do follow at Fossil Free London on all platforms, and see our disruptions, it brings people in and it gets them into this political, deeper, organising work. So we can think strategically about things like the rise of the populist right now in our country, what we're going to do about it, how we work against increasing polarisation, and how we work against the intersection of fascism and fossil fuels, which are really closely linked. So maybe later I could speak more about that, fossil fascism, and about our right to protest, what's happened to our rights, if people are interested as well, because there's still so much we can do, and we use those rights all the time. Every week we take action doggedly, consistently, energetically, and there is still so much. And I want people to feel empowered. In so many countries in the world, you do not have a right to be in a group. You do not have a right to make plans. And in this country, they might spy on us, they might put us in prison, as happened to Marcus, but they cannot stop us, and they are not stopping us. And it's our duty, our responsibility to honour that right and use it.
Thank you so much, Robin, and your work with Fossil Free London. I must admit I have joined the odd Fossil Free London activity here and there, and it's been really inspiring, engaging, and fun. And as Robin says, a brilliant way to bring new people in to support each other and to find ways to take an active stance against this destructive system. This panel is called The Future of Protest and Different Approaches to the Polycrisis. I think the biggest thing that a lot of us might be thinking about at the moment in terms of where's the cutting edge of protest in this country at the moment is a group called Defend Our Juries. They've been extremely successful, but I'll start maybe where they originated from and their name and all that stuff. I'm not part of Defend Our Juries, but I have been to some of their actions, so I thought I'd briefly explain. Climate campaigners like myself and others here have taken direct action, been arrested, been charged by the prosecution and taken to court. In court, if your so-called crime is over a certain threshold, you get the chance to go to Crown Court. In a Crown Court in this country, there's a jury. So that's 12 members of the public randomly selected to make a decision whether that person should be found guilty or not guilty. The jurors, the courts have taken some crazy turns in the last few years to a point where certain judges, the worst of whom was Silas Reed, banned certain words from being used in court. For example, the word climate crisis, climate change, climate breakdown, the cost of living crisis, or fuel poverty weren't allowed in court. And when people said, hang on a second, I took a stand against these injustices and faced the consequences of that, that's, part of that is the dialogue with the public, which goes to in part through the media, but also in part through the police and court system. I am now not allowed to say why I did this rather bizarre thing of, for example, sitting on a motorway or spraying a building with paint. That makes no sense at all. I have to, cannot go by my conscience and not use these words. I have to explain myself to the jurors so they understand why, otherwise it's just so weird to sit on a motorway. It makes no sense. So those people then, like my friend David, were sent to prison for using those specific words in court, and that's obviously really unjust.
Yeah, for contempt of court, right?
For contempt of court, exactly. Another friend of mine, Trudy Warner, was very clear in making a statement about the jurors' rights. The juror is there as a balancing force. They're normal people. They're not in the entrenched elite system. So established a few hundred years ago was this fantastic right, which we still have, is that the jury can decide, based on their conscience, whether the person there on the stand, the defendant, is either guilty or not guilty, whatever the judge says. And judges have been more and more specific in directing jurors to find guilty and have been more and more specific to take away legal defenses from defendants because they have seen jurors acquit non-violent, peaceful protesters, etc. So my friend Trudy stood outside a few years ago with a placard saying the jury have the right to acquit based on their conscience or something of that sort, which is exactly the wording that is inside the Old Bailey, one of the massive courthouses in central London. So it is a right enshrined in our law, and she was just very peacefully standing there not saying anything and telling people about that. And the judge really hated her for that and got her arrested immediately and sent her in front of the Solicitor General to say she should be imprisoned for contempt of court. Huge procedure. That kicked off the Defend Our Juries movement, because as she was being penalized and punished, others were saying, hang on a second, this is a right, and it's fine to silently stand with a placard outside in a public space and inform people of what it says on there. So more and more people started taking action, and it sort of snowballed around the country to the point where at every single Crown Court someone was sitting outside with that very same placard a while ago. And what did it lead to? And of course, initially a few more people were arrested, but then the critical threshold, the tipping point was reached, and people were not arrested anymore. They were allowed to be sat there, and then eventually in the highest court, Judge Sainid said it was fanciful, those claims, those what they were, the way they framed what Trudy Warner had done with her placard. That was just rubbish, and it is indeed a right, and it is indeed fine to stand with a placard outside a court. So that's where Defend Our Jury started. They created a great exhibition, thank you, sorry, to sit outside courts, to tell people about the oppression in Palestine, to tell people about the degrading protest rights in this country. And they have been challenging powers to be in that way very successfully, to the point where now they are sitting with this very particular placard, which, because of my specific political situation, I'm not going to say what it says, talking about this group that cannot be named because they have been proscribed as a terrorist organization, even though they are a non-violent direct action group, not a terrorist organization. So they have been able to increase their numbers greatly in sitting peacefully in Parliament Square with a placard, and to the point where last Saturday 870 roundabout people got arrested for sitting with a placard, some of which are at this festival, for taking a moral stand. So I think the website is wedonotcomply.org if you want to find out more or defend our juries. These continuing action are escalating. People are choosing to sit with them and saying we cannot conflate peaceful protest with terrorism, which is literally what is happening in Palestine, and is so different. And that if we were to allow that, then any group, anybody here in this space might be part of a group that it might be called a terrorist next, and then of course the consequences of that would be huge.
Marcus, can I jump in here?
Absolutely.
May I just say, is it okay if I say one thing first? So we do have to be quite careful in the discussion of this topic. It is legally allowed to object to the government prescribing certain organisations, to the process around that. It is illegal, however, to host a meeting or speak in a meeting that supports a prescribed organisation. So just to be aware that statements just in terms of speaking exactly about what the law is so everyone is informed, to just be really aware that statements that may lead to encouragement of support for an organisation or may be seen to recklessly encourage support for an organisation can result in arrests, house raids, etc. So just to be very conscious of that within this space for the shared safety of everyone here. And this is one of the ways in which we need to be aware what's happening to our rights, but it's the awareness that we must hold first. But now I'll turn back over to you. Thank you.
I'm actually really glad you said that because what I'm going to tell you a little story about my sisters, and I might have told it in another way if you hadn't said what you said. So I've been politically active and involved in direct action for many, many years, but my sisters have not. And they have come to demonstrations in Swansea for Palestine, anti-fascist demos sometimes, but that's the extent of it. But of course, with all the publicity around what's happened recently about that organisation I now won't name, they were incensed. And particularly one of my sisters, she's a strong person, but she's also quite private, a little bit timid. My other sister's very outgoing and like kind of feisty. So I said, I'm seriously thinking of doing this because I'm banned from Palestine at the moment. I don't know how I'm going to get around that, but I've had a lifetime ban imposed on me by the Israeli state, which is heartbreaking for me. So my sister said, my feisty sister said, I'm going to go with you. And then my other sister said, let me think about it. Okay, I'm going to go as well. So we were all in London, 6 of us from Swansea actually, last Saturday. And I think it's okay for me to say, me and my sisters were number 850, 851 and 852. So the real reason I'm telling you is I am so proud of my sisters because they had, and actually the 2 others from Swansea who came, had never been arrested. I'm the eldest, but they are both over 60 as well. And I'm especially proud of my more timid sister. And Groiny and myself were released sort of 8 or 9 in the next morning. And we were waiting for Olga, and she hadn't arrived in Paddington. And we were trying to track down what police station she was in, with great support from Defender Juries. The support all through the day was incredible. Food, water, snacks, moral support, toilet support, so you didn't have to leave. It was beautiful. And afterwards as well, being greeted when we came out of the police station. But we couldn't find my sister. And finally we realised she was in a police station well outside London and was reunited with her at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we were both really nervous. She's going to go crazy with us. She's like, what did you get me into? You told me this was going to happen. That didn't happen. This happened. We were actually quite nervous. And she came up the escalator and she just went. Oh, it was amazing. And she said that was the most empowering thing she'd ever done in her 66 years. So that's my
Thank you,
story.
Dee.
Beautiful story.
Brilliant.
Not encouraging anyone here to do the same, of course.
No.
Exactly. We are very mindful. We want to bring the audience in as soon as possible with questions. So do think about these. I just feel strongly that I should say a few words about the umbrella movement. Out of Extinction Rebellion, which was most active in 2018, 2019, etc. During and after COVID, Insulate Britain was born, and then another campaign came around, Just Stop Oil, which I'm sure most of you, if not everyone, has heard about. Just Stop Oil, I was arrested with and imprisoned with. Just Stop Oil is part of a wider set of groups with Youth Demand and with Assemble. What a key component to protest and making change going forward, starting with Extinction Rebellion and probably long before that, has been the focus on it's not enough to be against something, but we have to also create structures to enable that change to be possible. And one of the key issues here, of course, is our democratic system degrading greatly, or being designed to be in this way, only serving the people on the top. So an amazing tool to counter that are assemblies, people's assemblies and citizens' assemblies on a bigger level, on a city-wide or nation-wide level. So there's this group called Assemble, which are running these assemblies across the country and then asking these assemblies what their most important issues in their communities are. And then those sort of narrowed down from the hive mind of the people into this short charter of what the key issues are being passed on to independent politicians, being brought into elections. That's what's happened with the last election. And also going forward, there is work towards a parallel institution to the House of Lords called the House of the People, which had its first sitting this summer. Really exciting work and absolutely no risk of arrest if you're worried about that, but so important to support in all its ways. And of course, the system, the business as usual system, as we heard in the morning circle, is crumbling and it cannot go on forever. And as it is, we need to have these parallel institutions ready to jump into place so that it doesn't go to a complete descension into authoritarianism in this country and beyond. So I feel very strongly that that working in the pro-democracy space is extremely important. So the way that this is planned to happen is that there are more groups like Assemble and maybe to a large degree, hopefully your party getting on board with really giving a voice to the people and listening to what they want to change and think is necessary. And then to not just have these demands there, but to put pressure on the political system in a pincer movement where those of us that are able to go on the streets to protest, those people that are able to take to be arrested, to put pressure in this more traditional civil disobedience and non-violent direct action way, to enforce these demands from the people together. That's how we're going to make the change. And Just Stop Oil have hung up their hives, as many of you will know. There's many hundreds still going through the courts. In fact, there are even still Insulate Britain cases going through the courts. So you can support people that are going through the courts by going there, taking notes in court, helping people, always needed. But also, out of Just Stop Oil will re-emerge a new iteration of a direct action protest movement soon. Also, Youth Demand are doing incredible work weaving the climate crisis and how to address that, and the terrible genocide in Palestine and how to address that, and weaving those things together, led by young people, but not exclusive to young people. So I've been able to engage in various ways with Youth Demand, incredible work. So those are ways that protest and change-making is going forward, despite the oppressive, more and more oppressive nature of what's happening. So I'd just like to invite all the speakers to just maybe say a few final thoughts and points, anything that you want to briefly reflect on that has been said or that has not been said yet, before we open towards questions from the audience. Thank you. Dee, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think I'm going to repeat what I said before, but really, I think it's time my generation really put themselves out there. I mean, I'm not talking individually here. I get a feeling we've all been active in our own way for a long time, but somehow it's our generation who's allowed it to get to this terrible point. I mean, there was hope after the Second World War. There was a Labour government. It had social justice policies intertwined in it through it all of those years for maybe a dozen years until things started to fall apart. But now there is no alternative in the mainstream. So one thing we have our bodies and we have our voices. And the way the world is going, I think we're going to have to use them more and more in whatever way we can. So I would urge you to just, if you haven't stepped out of your comfort zone and done any direct action, to really think about it. And please remember the story of my sister who'd never done anything and was so, she said, not just empowered, but she was sort of reinvigorated, I would say. It's a very, very powerful step for personal growth in yourself. You get more out of doing it than maybe the change you can affect. So it's an awesome thing to do.
I just think maybe two things. One is it's great to hear, obviously, of the tactics of going into AGMs of these massive companies like Shell, because obviously behind the housing movement, there are similar players that are earning billions. I think Savills is even trying to move into social housing, and Savills is very much the ones that triggered Lambeth to start demolishing our estate. So, but it isn't just them. So I think these kind of tactics need to be used in the housing movement more as well. Like Berkeley Homes, they're demolishing so many sites all across at least London and I think Birmingham as well. So the same players are doing the same thing in different areas. And I think, it's good to remember there's different tactics. And the other thing that I want to say is that very much the opposite to that is like education. I think many people do not realise that at the local level, the most destructive thing you can do, or any local authority can do, because obviously internationally there's a lot going on, but at a local level, demolishing a house, rebuilding it into something that people cannot afford is the worst thing for the environment and for the society. So it's do educate yourself. Like there's a lot to read, but also we need to, as a movement, help people to understand the kind of simple building blocks as to why we have such a disaster happening around us, unfolding. And it's affecting people's lives. People are living in temporary housing, poor housing, overcrowding. There are empty homes. There's 4-bed and empty. I don't know if you've seen the banner all this weekend, but there are 4 beds and empty, even just on my estate, and they should be having a family in it. They all should be inhabited with people, occupied, for people to thrive, not just to exist.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a menu of 3 things you can do. We've obviously heard about, the action you can take if you want to be part of one of these movements that sort of seek arrest in order to put the state into a position of it being clear that ordinary people are standing up against the system as it is, that they're putting their bodies in the way, that conscientious, good-willed people are going to prison. There are those options available, but at Fossil Free London, we aim to avoid being arrested, and we bring lots of new people into the movement in this way. And for many people, arrest doesn't feel like something they can step into doing. For many, it will be empowering. For many, going to prison will be empowering. But if that's not for you, here's 3 things that you can do. So, really, really important. This is such a beautiful bubble, a beautiful nest, a beautiful warm sanctuary for us. But we do need to step out of it. The world is extremely polarised, and we partially create that in a very meaningful way through only speaking to our sort of people. We need to stop this. With the rise of fascism in this country, it's one of the most important things you can do. And everyone talks about it, but do they do it? Go to your neighbour's house and bring them an apple pie. Just literally someone you think you probably don't see eye to eye with. Start that connection. Think of a meaningful, material way you can make that connection and step outside your bubble. Do it with 1 person, and it's better than saying to 5 people it should be done. The second thing is let's win the narrative war online. There are so many amazing right-wing speakers. There's so many amazing right-wing social media that is persuading children, even children of colour, into fascist ideas right now. If you have a compelling voice, if you could even try and, develop a bit of a nice social media persona, this is the time to get on social media. Gary Stevenson said he's feeling lonely. He wants other people to join. Okay, I saw him on a panel recently. So get on social media. And the final thing is trespass. It's legal, basically. It's a civil offence. Who cares? Go into your local, massive housing conglomerate. Make their life difficult. Use it in your spectrum of tactics. But do consider strategy as well. Disruption alone is not going to change things. And there's amazing strategic resources online. Okay, so your menu is 1, step out your bubble. 2, create a narrative war online, a narrative peace mission online, I should say. And 3, become disruptive. Take those actions which are still legal.
We were hoping for John from Camp Beagle to be here. He cannot, but Priya Dakas offered to very briefly just say a few words about another protest tactic, which is occupations. So before we hand it over to the audience questions, 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so my name is Priya Daka.
8.
Yes, it's a shame that John isn't here. John Curtin. He's been involved in basically animal liberation and animal activism for 30, 40 years. He's been extraordinary. Prison sentences. He's been persecuted and hounded and all the rest of it, like a lot of other people have in different situations. So, I mean, yeah, I was arrested with him for different activities, and one was to go to it used to be called Interfauna near Huntingdon in 1990. We went in with a gang. We got our 80 beagles that were being bred for animal testing, for so much stuff we use, for tobacco, for vaping, but so many other products, chemicals and paints and cosmetics, all the rest of it. 80 beagles, within a few weeks, all those beagles have been replaced. People have been breaking in there since then to get beagles out. So those beagles are saved. It really makes a difference. Those beagles are now out and free. Some have passed on because it's 40 years ago, whatever it was. People are still going on now. Animal Rising have been going in, making a big impact. Our idea was to get animals out in Scarpa and not get caught. And Animal Rising get the animals out and then go to court to get the point across. And they've been very, very effective and very successful. John and others have now been camped outside. It's now called MBR Beagles. It's an large American company that does this, basically animal breeding, all sorts of different animals. Beagles are, I suppose, the most cutest animals that they experiment on. So they're bred. They're very easy to experiment on because they're soft, cute, fluffy little animals. They don't complain when they're tested on. And for some reason, they're quite easy to see the results of tests on them. When you cut them open, you can see what's happened to them. So they're very productive. They're a very good animal, perfect to work on. So people have been camped outside Camp Beagle near Huntingdon for a long time, and John has been one of those there. I think he's probably going through a bit of a mental health struggle because he's just been there so long, just camped outside this place, hearing the beagles crying night after night, and then watching trucks come and take them away where they're tested on, appalling torture, and then they're dead. More ones are bred. I'd like him to be here because he would really say this much more from being there over and over again. I was going out visiting, staying there for a little while, supporting him, being there. I saw him in court 3 years ago. A messy arrest. It's a messy sort of event, and to hear him speak in court was extraordinary because he talked so well that they found him not guilty. And afterwards, he's in floods of tears over that. It was an extraordinary thing to do. So yeah, that's me speaking for John.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So, another amazing tactic of protest are these occupation camps. There's animal rights camps around the country. There have been camps against HS2, which we have stopped the second leg of, and that was incredible to support when it lasted. Keep your eyes out for protest camps, especially in London and in other places. There are camps in solidarity with Palestine outside the US Embassy. There are round the clock. So if this is your cup of tea, go support them for a few days or find other ways to support them. That is still legal to be part of these camps, and we might as well, as Robin said so well, use our rights while we have them. Okay, over to you guys in the, you friendly people in the audience. Let's start with you in the middle here, and yes. And maybe you can also say whom, if you have anyone specific in mind that you'd like to ask this question, but you don't have to.
Hi, yeah. Can you hear me? Right. My name's Rachel. Something came up really strongly in me to say, and I'd love to hear. Sorry, remind me your name?
Robin.
Robin. Yeah, and it was specifically on collapse, and it also related a bit to what Sabine was saying. It feels really important to share with everybody here that there are many regenerative practitioners and complex systems researchers around the globe who believe that there's a sliver of hope. So as much as we're in a really desperate situation, it's really important that we hold on to that sliver of hope. Joe Brewer is one of the regenerative practitioners that I'm in communication with. He's an amazing guy with his partner regenerating a plateau in the Colombian Andes. And he wrote a fantastic article called "The Survivors Will Be Bioregional," and I really encourage you to read it. And part of my new role and my work that I'm just stepping into now, which I'll say more about in a session later called Get On My Land, is about creating these little sanctuaries that you spoke about earlier. And so in parallel to what you guys are doing, this work is so, so important. The land is calling us. We need to reconnect with Mother Earth in this way. We need to relearn land-based skills, how to be interdependent again, and remember all of this which is in our bones. So that's what I'm igniting. And it just felt really important to bring some kind of positive message of, even if it's a slither of hope, it's some hope.
Yeah.
So let's get on the land together.
Fantastic. Let's have 2 more questions before we have some answers from the panel. In the middle, in the back, and then the gentleman with the hat. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. The person with the hat, the beautiful person with the hat. How about that? Yes, I'm sorry.
Thank you for speaking so powerfully and clearly. I just want to speak with and for Dee. I went to Palestine with ISM for a few months, and if anybody has that kind of maybe, then a beautiful way that I went is I went on a Buddhist retreat for 2 weeks in the West Bank with an organisation called Sangha Savers, and then joined ISM. And so if anybody here resonates with that as a way that it can hold them, they can come and speak to me.
Amazing. Thank you very much for the comment.
Woo.
Over to you.
So, well, 2 things. I've become an activist in the last, really for the first time in my life, 5 months, really, because being part of a demonized community, I dress like this everywhere, and I educate people. I tell people the realities of being a trans person and not what they read in the Daily Mail, not what they hear in the media, and it's very shocking. I don't really know what more I can do, but that's how I'm doing my activism, and I realize the risks I take is being beaten up. So far, I don't think it hasn't gone as far as I don't take the risk of going to prison, but anyway, the point is I wanted to ask about Palestine because I know that Israel is very much, one of the things they propagate is the persecution of queer people in Palestine. I wanted to know the truth about it because I'm unclear, because it is an important issue to me. I would go dressed like this if I went to Palestine, which at the moment I don't intend to, and I don't know, would I be persecuted? Would I be welcome? I've noticed in a lot of groups, activist groups, that they're very clearly anti-trans. I've come across it, and I have a very strong detection system for it. You know, I hear it. Oh yeah, we're suspicious. Mentally ill, pervert, fetishist. I will say I'm a proud pervert and a proud fetishist. I don't see what that's got to do with who I am. It's a part of me, and most people are, so this is just pure crap. But anyway, that's just what I want to say. Thank you. That's my question.
Thanks for your question. We definitely value trans and all queer people around here. So I hope that wasn't in any way directed at us. Shall we have one more question and then hand it over to the panel? Yes, thank you.
I just want to say I'm part of a group called Resilience to Resist, and we came out of Insulate Britain and Just Stop Oil, and we welcome to support all sorts of groups. And so basically we're supporting activists because inevitably some people come into activism with quite a raw anger, and we strengthen the non-violence of that. We offer emotional debrief spaces. We offer the work that reconnects, so we're offering grief spaces for people to process stuff. We welcome more people doing that. You know, sometimes someone wants to do offer an online yoga class for activists. Most of what we do is online, but some of it's in person. We also offer equality, diversity, and inclusive stuff. You know, because inevitably in some of these activist groups, there are, you know, the hardcore people that are saying, look, the action is the thing. So we kind of balancing that and really feeding the people. And if there's anybody here with counselling skills wants to offer anything to activists, to really support activists, because as every campaigning action, as every group says, there's many roles that aren't arrestable, you know. Being arrested in Parliament Square is one thing, but, you know, police stations support all the other roles. So I'm part of a group that's non-arrestable that supports people. So if anybody's interested in getting involved in that, see me afterwards and I'll take your details. The group is called Resilience to Resist. And it's, along with the Rebels in Prison support that was mentioned at the vigil, we're part of... we're part of CASP, which is Climate Action Support Pathways. Thank you. But it was named when it was purely climate action. But, of course, we're all much broader than climate action because we're recognising the intersectionality of all civil resistance.
Thanks, Bill. Really great. I take it the... space here is probably being used quite punctually after this, so we better try to stick to time. Is that right, or can we run over a few minutes? What's your feeling?
Yeah,
oh,
we've got 4 minutes.
okay. Well, that's great. Thank you so much. Yes. Any responses to the comments and questions we've heard from the panelists?
I mean, maybe I'll just say about slither of hope. Yes, there is a slither of hope. What I mean to say is, back in the day, there was a lot of discussion of, you know, we can transform this world, we can make it better than it's ever been before, we can prevent climate collapse and indeed build a better society. That now isn't going to happen. Like, we are going to see our ecosystems collapsing and knock-on social, political and economic consequences. Unfortunately, Shell did the job that they thought they would be doing in the 1980s, that they wrote about incredibly presciently, and that has happened. So it will get worse. That doesn't mean we can't build the hope within that. And for me, the hope really comes from, as you can probably tell, from the collective action and from joining together in a group to realise the power that we have. So I think we can create these spaces of hope. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the landed part. You know, there's obviously different theories of change about changing policies so that society changes, theories of change about disrupting and making everything really challenging until we, you know, throw over the people in power, and theories about creating a better space, you know, showing a model of what society can be. And everyone should try to develop an understanding of what their theory of change is through taking action, not alone with a book, and then keep practicing that. And I think that was a really great contribution. So thank you. Yeah.
I was really grateful that a lot of this festival was dedicated to the work that reconnects and Joanna Macy's work. I have myself been able to attend a few workshops. If you don't know about it yet, make sure to keep coming back to these sort of spaces and seek out the work that reconnects, because it's so crucial in establishing what we heard in the morning circle, if you were there, that these 3 different stories that are being told: the business as usual story, the doom and gloom story, which we might slip into very quickly if we talk about collapse and think, oh dear, everything is going to get so much worse. But let's all hold on to and work together on the great turning, which is what we're all part of. And so for me, that translates into a shift, actually, away from the word hope, whether or not we have hope, because that can be problematic in my view. It can be misleading. What I feel more strongly about is, of course, being hopeful, that we are hoping for the best possible outcome, that we're hoping to reduce suffering that is otherwise inevitably locked in through our various ways of taking action to reduce suffering now and going forward. But I feel like it is appropriate to potentially shift the framing in our heads a bit, and to just, I look at it myself from a perspective that one day I will be on my deathbed and looking back at my life, and I will want to look back at a life where I can feel can look the young people in the eye and say I've tried, can say I have tried to use my life productively, and whether or not hope was there or not, whether or not this particular tactic or strategic approach is going to win or not, those are secondary questions for me. It is right in this point in history for me to step into resistance, to say I'm going to try what I can based on the information I have, based on the emotional, all the feelings I hold, and trying to make a balance. And the work that Reconnects really helps with that incredible work, to take action as I can and work towards what I feel is morally right, rather than focusing on whether or not there is hope. That's what the great turning means for me personally.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from the panel?
Before I speak to that person, Chris. Hi, Chris. Just before that, I want to say thanks for... Crystal, sorry. I'm sorry, Crystal. I just want to speak to you for a second, because my daughter and her family have set up a community-supported agriculture scheme on the Gower. There's lots of them. And so she says to me, Mum, you go and do your thing. I know direct action is your thing. Our thing here is to create a sanctuary for people who are, it's a refuge. So when I go back, I walk around the little lake they have and walk among the plants. And I'm so grateful for that. So as an anarchist, it's like we respect every kind of strategy and tactic for going forward. It's an inclusive thing. Everything is important. Can I talk straight to Crystal now? Yeah. Crystal, first of all, I want to say to you that unfortunately, a lot of women my age have a bad reputation of being anti-trans, but I'm in the most fortunate position of having a trans granddaughter. She's a teenager, and she has educated me so much, and I know I have a lot of learning still to do, but I'm on that path of understanding and trying to empathize. And she says to me now, she was like, don't refer to me as your trans granddaughter, I'm just a girl. She's just really direct. I love her. She also tells me if I'd lived another age, I'd have been pansexual. That's what she reckons. But in terms of Palestine, I can only talk to you about my own experience. With ISM, we're a very inclusive organisation. And the last time I was in Massafra Yatta, there were 12 of ISMers in the flat. I would say out of the 12, 7 or 8 identified as queer. Not specifically trans, but certainly non-binary. Now, from my understanding, I've been going to Palestine since 2004. It's a predominantly Muslim society. Obviously, it's 10% Christian as well. It's a Muslim society, and in the way I see it, in the way Ireland was maybe 40 years ago when I was growing up in Ireland. So, to be gay... excuse me now, I'm just talking about gay initially. It was not a thing. And if you were gay in Ireland 40 years ago, you certainly didn't come out to your family about it. My experience in Palestine is the same. I've met 2 gay men in Palestine. I haven't met any lesbian women who have confided in me they're gay, but they know they would be ostracized in their community if they came out as gay. And I think trans is also that case. Like, the Muslims in Palestine, again in my experience, are a bit like Catholics in Ireland. They go to the mosque every Friday. It's like to be Palestinian is always to be Muslim, the way to be Irish was Catholic. You know, so I think it's not in their vocabulary. They wouldn't have words to oppose it. It's just not part of their culture. So when the non-binary people have come to Palestine with ISM, they've had to make a decision on how to present. I mean, there are no, like, say if you use the toilets, there wouldn't be like a disabled or a non-binary toilet. It's just not a thing. So you'd have to decide, how am I going to present? Now, my friend from Brighton came, and it's been quite difficult for them, but they decided to present as she, because for someone to look at them, that's what they would see. Though that's not how they feel. No, that's all I've experienced, so please ask, yeah. Yes, that's these, yeah. Yeah, I've asked the 2 gay men I spoke to, and they hadn't heard about that. But they know definitely they wouldn't come out to their families and friends. Yeah.
I'm really sorry to slowly have to wrap up. We have run over time, and this is a really important conversation to have, as are there many other conversations to have. Maybe lots of you can keep approaching us after this session now. Some of you might go and have lunch with us. Some of us might be around with our materials here. We appreciate you all coming and listening.
It's all moving to the food hall.
Okay, thank you for the advice. Sorry. Our bits of materials are moving to the food hall now. Meet us there. Let's have more conversations. Let's carry on. The panel time is unfortunately up. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks again to all the speakers, and thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you. Woo! Thank you. Thank you, guys.